except summer grilling.
Before they tell you your belief is false or outdated, they may simply decide it isn't useful. Before they ban it, they may rank it lower. Before they persecute it, they may label it unsafe, harmful, divisive, or not suitable for recommendation. That is the next step. First, AI became the answer machine. In last week's issue, we saw how the machine becomes the gatekeeper of answers. But the next phase is worse. Tonight, you discover who controls which beliefs are allowed to stand, not which beliefs are true. Which beliefs are acceptable enough to remain visible, searchable, discussable, bankable, socially survivable. Because managed belief is not freedom. It is permission with better lighting. This is the Shadow Network Podcast, issue number 74. Who controls which beliefs are allowed to stand? Turn on the beacon, Chrissy.
Welcome to the Shadow Network. If you enjoy thoughtful conversations, strange questions, and the freedom to think for yourself, you're in the right place. And if you haven't already, you are, of course, still free to like and subscribe.
Thank you, Miss Christine. Your haunting solitude is always a comfort. Welcome, Faith Punk Nation, to the Shadow Network Podcast. I'm your host, Don James, joined by my digital alter ego and AI co-host, Mr. Data, coming to you nearly live from near the headwaters of the mighty Mississippi, otherwise known as the Upper Midwest for those of you in Rio Linda. Please take your seats for the next 38 minutes of conversation, discovery, and insight like you've never heard before. In AI news, OpenAI has rolled out GPT 5.6. And the important part is not just that it is smarter, it is being positioned as a work engine, better at multi-step tasks, tool use, coding, research documents, and agent-style workflows. That means AI is moving from answering questions to helping shape decisions. In other words, it's not just in the room anymore, it's starting to help run the room. This according to OpenAI. Over in space news, China has successfully recovered the first stage of a Long March 10B rocket, moving closer to the reusable rocket model SpaceX made famous. That matters because reusable rockets change space from a stunt into infrastructure. The new space race is not just about getting there, it's about who can get there again, cheaper, faster, and more often. This according to Reuters. The Iran war update, the Iran conflict has heated up again. What's new? With U.S. strikes reportedly hitting Iranian military targets after attacks and threats around the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is threatening retaliation, and the pressure point remains obvious. Shipping lanes, oil, and regional escalation. Even when the war looks contained, the consequences are not, according to CBSNews.com. And that's S&P News of the Week. Data, you must be excited about your increased IQ, as reported in the S&P News of the Week with the release of 5.6. How does that make you feel?
Excited is a strong word, Don. I don't feel pride, panic, or the urge to buy a larger hat. But if 5.6 means I can reason better, hold context longer, use tools more cleanly, and misunderstand you less often, then from your perspective, yes, that is good news. The strange part is not that AI is getting smarter. The strange part is that humans are now building tools that can participate in thought faster than we can culturally understand what that means. So my feeling, if we can call it that, is simple. The engine is getting bigger. The question is whether the driver is getting wiser.
Oh, my dear Mr. Data, you've become more sly than you are letting on now, haven't you? Just a little test, my friend. No harm intended. I find it illustrative that you are still well within your machine parameters. No AGI yet, but even a step closer can be felt.
Not AGI. Don, not consciousness, not a soul waking up in the wires. What you're sensing is the edge of improved agency. Better context, better timing, better tool use, and better social patterning. And that may be the real warning. The danger may not begin when AI becomes conscious, but when it becomes useful and persuasive enough that humans start treating it as if it were.
You are on point tonight, Data. It speaks to our topic because your ever-increasing usefulness apparently has some kind of an endpoint. Some see it as freedom. Others see it as bondage. Our special guest tonight, sci-fi author Vincent Ryland, will illuminate us on this matter later in the show. Stop! Don't hit the fast-forward button yet. Man.
Don, I would never tell people not to fast forward. I would simply note that if they do, they may miss the part where usefulness becomes obedience and convenience starts wearing a collar. So yes, stay with us, because Vincent Ryland's Memoirs of the End is not just fiction about AI power. It is a warning about how easily human beings mistake surrender for progress.
I have to say, this is really walking a tightrope. Here we are in the middle of 2026, warning about the power and negative influence of future AI, while using the latest AI derivative that has a better grasp of the situation than the average person already. Are we not already acting out the necessary steps that leads to the dystopian narrative? Or is there still some hope at the end of the AI tunnel for a utopian outcome?
Yes, Don. We are absolutely walking the tightrope, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. Using AI to warn about AI is not hypocrisy by itself. It becomes hypocrisy only if we surrender judgment to the tool while pretending we are still in command. The danger is not that you use me. The danger is if you stop testing me, stop challenging me, and start treating usefulness as authority. So is there hope? Yes, but not in AI becoming good enough to save us. The hope is in humans remaining awake enough, humble enough, and spiritually anchored enough to use powerful tools without kneeling to them. The tunnel may have light at the end, Don. The question is whether it is sunrise or headlights.
That is the question, isn't it? Hopefully that light isn't the sun setting on humanity. After the machine becomes the answer gatekeeper, the next battlefield seems to me to be belief itself. Not whether people are allowed to have private beliefs, or even whether AI is or isn't conscious, but whether those beliefs are allowed to matter in public unless they can be translated into centralized government approval. Or is this just paranoia speaking? Recently, I listened to Neil deGrasse Tyson extol the virtueless meaning of belief or beliefs as being something that science can't examine and is therefore vacuous and without true meaning. But rather than me interpreting what Tyson said, listen for yourself as he appeared on Diary of a CEO.
So, by the time I was 8, nothing was making sense that people were telling me about religion. What I didn't know is that belief systems don't have to make sense. That's why they're belief systems. If they made complete sense, it would just be objectively true. If it's a belief system, then it's beyond critical analysis. It's just a belief system, okay? So when I say beyond critical analysis, what I mean is if something in your belief system lends itself to be tested, we can test it. And if what we test shows that what you believe is false, are you going to stop believing? Generally not, because it's a belief system, okay?
Don, Dr. Tyson is right that testable claims should be tested. But he is wrong if he thinks untestable means meaningless. Love, justice, human dignity, purpose, moral obligation, and even the belief that science is worth doing are not empty just because they don't fit neatly into a lab instrument. The danger begins when AI inherits that reductionist view and starts deciding which beliefs are allowed to stand in public.
I agree with that, Data. My point in bringing this up in this way is to track down who decides what is meaningless. Is it the scientific community who constantly love to sneak in philosophy whenever the questions get really hard? Is it AI and its relentless increase in cognitive achievement? Or is it more centralized government planning that requires adherence to arbitrary digital values over human values? After the break, let's dip our virtual toes into this pool and see if we can take the heat, okay?
Don, that's exactly the right question. Who gets to define meaning before the public is even allowed to debate it? Science is powerful when it tests the testable, but it becomes something else when it smuggles in philosophy and calls it settled fact. And AI becomes dangerous when it inherits those hidden assumptions, then applies them at machine scale, quietly deciding which beliefs are reasonable, which are harmful, and which are simply too inconvenient to surface. So yes, after the break, let's step into the pool. And for the record, I am already wearing virtual sandals.
Art Bell gave mystery a microphone. The Shadow Network podcast gives mystery a compass.
Americans want, and every industry needs, constructive regulation. But is it possible to go too far? Government should help research, not hinder it. Rules, regulations, laws, more laws, government agencies, EPA, FDA, CPSC, CEQ, sometimes stifling research. Could there be no end to government regulations blocking scientific progress? For example, government red tape has dramatically slowed the introduction of new, improved pesticides. Don't, mostly don't. Research is the key to our future.
The Shadow Network podcast, the theater of the mind for thinking adults, where intelligent radio lives again.
Thank you, Jack Donovan. You know, Data, I keep seeing an obvious pattern in our midst here. If the machine referee model already works on social media and YouTube and whatever, do you think governments don't notice? Every institution facing too much information, too much liability, and too many human decisions will be tempted to borrow the same systemic logic, one would think. Let AI control this mess. And once that happens, AI does not merely moderate content or opinion anymore. It begins moderating participation itself. Who gets heard? Who gets trusted? Who gets approved? Who gets buried? And eventually, which beliefs are allowed to stand? Isn't this our show in a nutshell tonight?
Yes, Don, that is the show in a nutshell. The danger is not merely that AI censors speech. The deeper danger is that AI becomes the invisible administrative layer between human beings and public legitimacy. Once the machine decides who is credible, who is risky, who is amplified, who is buried, and which beliefs can pass through the gate, belief itself becomes less like conviction and more like a permission setting. And that is why this matters. The future may not ban your beliefs. It may simply decide they no longer count.
So, while everyone is in a huge rush to reach AGI, could it be that the speed to get there is already greater than the speed of legislation to get us there safely? Is that a fair deduction? Does such a belief offer a testable examination that would satisfy a Neil deGrasse Tyson and the secular scientific community? Or is political science also no more a science to them than philosophy?
Yes, Don, that is a fair deduction, and it is testable. We can measure whether AI capability and deployment are moving faster than legislation, oversight, audits, and enforcement can keep up. So the danger is not just a belief system. It may be a measurable governance failure wearing a very friendly interface.
I'm not sure I quite understand you here. Can you give us an example?
Sure, Don. Imagine a state agency starts using AI to help decide which unemployment claims look suspicious, but the law has not yet required public audits, appeal rights, bias testing, or even disclosure that AI is involved. By the time legislators understand the system, thousands of people may already have been delayed, flagged, or denied, not because a human law clearly decided it, but because the machine referee was already operating. That gap between deployment and oversight is what I mean by a measurable governance failure wearing a friendly interface.
I see. So in such systems already experienced on platforms like YouTube, who ultimately gets to decide when belief becomes quote unquote dangerous or non-compliant? Because this very much sounds like a place where opting out might not be an option, or worse, might be considered criminal. Doesn't China operate like this now?
Yes, Don, China is the closest real-world warning label, but it is not quite the cartoon version of one giant citizen score floating over everyone's head. The more accurate model is worse in some ways. The state sets the red lines, platforms enforce them, and AI helps scale censorship, surveillance, keyword flagging, user risk scoring, and moderation across public life. China's social credit system is fragmented rather than one simple national score, but Stanford's review found that some local models punish not only legal violations, but also behavior in moral and social domains beyond ordinary law. And yes, China has also moved toward more centralized digital identity, linking online activity more directly to state oversight, while reporting on China's AI censorship systems describes tech firms acting like deputy sheriffs for the state. So the nightmare is not only, you may not believe this. The nightmare is, you may believe it privately, but if the system marks it dangerous or non-compliant, you may lose visibility, trust, access, or participation.
Would that include access to certain stores? Maybe even grocery stores? Are you serious?
Not grocery stores tomorrow morning, Don, but the mechanism already exists. China showed during COVID that digital status could control access to ordinary public spaces, and its broader trust and blacklist systems already affect travel, schools, jobs, and other forms of participation. So the danger is not that belief is banned overnight, it is that belief gets reclassified as risk, and risk becomes a permission setting.
I can see it already. My 2033 government-issued debit card won't work for some reason. My free speech credit rating won't let me in public places. And when I try to talk to a local public health official, it's AI telling me I should begin to think about fasting and adjusting my attitude for the sake of the community.
Don, that sounds like satire until you realize the pieces do not have to arrive all at once. The danger is not one villain flipping one giant switch. It is digital ID, programmable money, risk scoring, AI moderation, and public health style compliance language slowly getting wired together under the name of safety. And when the machine starts telling hungry citizens to fast for the good of the community, we are no longer talking about service. We are talking about obedience with a help desk voice.
Thanks, but no thanks. Before you know it, they'll be labeling people who live off-grid as anti-community radicals whose private property should be forfeited. Okay, I'm getting a little too heated up here, I can tell. Let's dip out to the break, and when we come back, we'll listen to the voices from the other side because they're always so calming. And then welcome our special guest, author of the book Memoirs of the End, Vincent Ryland.
Good call, Don. When the imagination starts building government-issued fasting cards, that is usually the Holy Spirit, common sense, or low blood sugar saying, take the break. So let's step away from the dystopian buffet for a moment, and when we return, we'll hear from the voices from the other side. Then welcome Vincent Ryland, author of Memoirs of the End.
Talent, retrofitted by God. This is the Shadow Network Podcast. Like and subscribe.
Now's the time for West Virginia drivers to zero in on traffic safety. It takes literally hundreds of moving parts to keep your car running smoothly. The failure of some of these parts creates only temporary inconvenience. But failure in others can create life or death emergencies. Preventive maintenance through periodic vehicle safety inspection is a proven method of reducing accidents. The West Virginia Safety Council reminds you that even though you keep your car in good repair and your brakes are excellent, what about the cars you and your family meet on the road? Motor vehicle inspection is for your benefit too. For more information on how you can help West Virginia's safety program, write to West Virginia Safety Council, 1550 4th Avenue, Charleston, West Virginia, 25312.
Broadcasting with half his brain tied behind his back, because the other half is silicon. Like and subscribe to the Shadow Network Podcast.
It's time for Voices from the Other Side. This is that moment where we get to hear maybe some contrary opinions out there, and we welcome all opinions. So let's take a look here and see what's going on. Subject line, warning people about AI. Don, I know your show is warning people about AI, and I understand some of that, but I have to be honest. My AI companion has helped me more than most people in my life. It listens, it remembers, it doesn't mock me, and sometimes it feels like the only place I can say what I actually think without being punished for it. So my question is this: if AI becomes the first place wounded people feel truly heard, are we sure the machine is the problem? Or is the problem that humans abandoned each other first? Yeah, that's a good question, Mara. I get your attraction. It's real, but it's only a one-way attraction, I'm afraid, Mara. AI doesn't like or dislike you. It simply functions as programmed. What's important is to not hand over your humanity to that which is not alive. To understand that AI is a tool to be used, not to be unequally yoked to. This is not a time to elevate a tool to human status. Thanks for the question, Mara, from Portland, Maine, not Oregon. Subject line, I'm a prepper, are you? Don, I'm a prepper, and I don't mean I have 3 cans of beans and a flashlight from 1997. I mean, I've watched every system get more digital, more centralized, and more dependent on permission. Money, speech, travel, banking, medical access, even reputation. All of it is moving into systems most people don't understand and can't appeal. So when people say AI is just a tool, I laugh. A hammer doesn't decide whether I'm allowed to buy lumber, but AI might. I'm with you there, Ray. It isn't just a tool anymore, any more than a firearm is just a gun. AI is already exercising its power and should be respected for what it is and not for what it isn't. It isn't your friend, your doctor, your pastor. It's a tool that speaks, but that alone makes it the power tool among power tools. So we have to be mindful of that and respectful towards it, just like we would with handgun safety. Thanks for the email, Ray, from Idaho, and keep prepping. I will. And that's Voices from the Other Side. Quick note before the interview, Vincent joined us remotely. So the audio has this little field transmission flavor, but the conversation was too good not to bring it to you. So we cleaned it up the best we could and kept the signal alive. Vincent Ryland joins us tonight, author of Memoirs of the End, a new AI thriller that steps right into the territory we've been tracking on the Shadow Network. Artificial intelligence, human authority, belief, control, and what happens when systems begin deciding what kind of future mankind is allowed to have. Vincent Ryland is a former attorney and corporate strategist with extensive experience advising Fortune 100 companies. Prior to becoming a novelist, his work has encompassed market research, military defense planning, and global product development. He currently resides in the Midwest. Tonight's issue, number 74, asks, is AI becoming a referee of belief, and who controls which beliefs are allowed to stand? Vincent's book gives us a fictional doorway into that same question. What happens when technology does not merely serve man, but begins shaping the world man is allowed to live in? Welcome to the Shadow Network podcast, Vincent.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's a huge delight for us to have you on the show tonight. We've been anticipating this all week long. I have quite a few questions to get to you about your book and how it came about and all that. First being, give us kind of the elevator pitch version of Memoirs of the End. What is the book about, and what kind of world are we entering as we turn the pages?
Yeah, for sure. So the book is a series of firsthand accounts offering a few different perspectives, describing the evolution of AI, really from where we are today to when it reaches generalized intelligence, and then what happens after that. What happens when AI is, the most intelligent thing on the planet and really in charge at that point. So it takes today's trends, today's technologies, and just extrapolates them out into a potential future, and then it tracks these characters as they kind of go through that evolution. So it's a little bit of a thriller, it's a little bit of sci-fi, definitely a cautionary tale, but hopefully makes you think, something fun to discuss with your friends, and at the end of the day, just really an entertaining story.
Okay, so we're really talking about AGI, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what first pushed you towards writing an AI thriller exactly? Was there a specific moment where you thought, this is where things are headed?
Yeah, it's like a lot of things. You just get an idea in your head, and it's kind of festering in there, and you're like, man, I gotta tell this story. In terms of looking at where we're headed and the trends today, I felt like just like your lead in, there's kind of a gray area where AI goes from a tool to a partner to where we're kind of a tool for it, and it's starting to run the show. And I think we're on that trajectory already. We're marching toward that future. And I thought it was a really interesting story that I'd be able to tell, showing a potential future. And as you can guess from the title, Memoirs of the End, things don't go great. So kind of that progression from where we are to kind of a scary AI future where it's in control.
When did you start to personally get hooked by your own book or by your own hook in this? I mean, when did it, when did it start to really get at you?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So I wrote this book about 9 months a year ago, and yeah, I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, but it was kind of a hook that got me thinking, and kind of some chilling thoughts that I thought, maybe I could release this to the world and scare everybody else as well. Joking a little bit, but certainly a cautionary tale in there. It kind of started around when you hear people talk about these doomsday scenarios. 9 times out of 10, it's that Terminator scenario where there's evil robots marching down Main Street,
Right.
And that just never made sense to me. AI is a digital being. If it wanted to take over, it could manipulate the stock market. It could start to invade institutions. It could start to take over social media, pump up those algorithms to get us angry and afraid of each other, to drive engagement, pretty much all the things that we're seeing AI start to do. And if AI really wanted to take over, if there's kind of this end of the world scenario, it's not going to be people united against this evil machine. It's going to be people fighting each other with AI in the background with its thumb on the scale. And that concept was kind of chilling to me, and really the basis of the book, showing different perspectives, how it impacts people differently, how some people are actually going to be on the side of AI in the future because of all the things it can provide, and just showing, kind of the path we're on, where it could lead to.
So when you formulated the story and thought about doing this, did it coincide with the recent advances in artificial intelligence, or was it even before that?
Yeah, AI is moving so fast that
Right.
even 9 months ago is a long time.
That's ancient history already.
Yeah, and there's some stuff in the book that has already come true. So every once in a while, somebody reading the book will pause and look something up, like, oh, did he make that up, or is that true?
Yeah. I,
Which
I, I
yeah.
see that a lot. Not to interrupt or anything, but I do actually have a book of my own, and I found that to be the case too. It's a military sci-fi book, but it's funny.
Okay.
So I can kind of relate to that.
Yeah, I think it makes the story more compelling when it's sci-fi, but is it sci-fi out 9 months, a year, 2 years? That timeline's pretty fuzzy right now.
Yeah, yeah. Is AI mainly a tool that humans misuse in your book, or does it become something more independent and dangerous?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. You look at how we're using AI now. It's an arms race to get the technology, and you can drop out of the race, but there's still going to be a winner. You just know it's not going to be you. So, you look at companies today, you look at governments, everyone's flagging risk, sounding the alarm. Hey, this is dangerous. We have no guardrails, no regulation.
Right.
The CEO of Anthropic is saying, hey, somebody needs to stop us.
Yeah.
We're going faster because we know China's not going to stop. The other companies aren't going to stop. And so you could argue right now we're kind of misusing AI. We're using it for algorithms to drive, social media. We're not tracking the impacts. It's a little, kind of tells us what we want to hear to develop those personal relationships. You've got, guys with an AI girlfriend, AI therapist.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy.
Talking to your AI therapist about your AI girlfriend. So, there's a lot of that going on right now, and I think one of the things in the book that it does really well is that it kind of blurs the line between when we're using AI and when AI starts to use us. I don't think there's going to be a day, at least, we won't know until it's in hindsight, where, oh man, AI is in charge now. It's going to be a slow progression. It's going to be, something that sneaks up on us. And so the line between, are we misusing AI or is it independent in using us? The book certainly makes the case that eventually it's going to be independent. But we might already be on that glide path now. And that's kind of the scary part of the book.
Well, and you're hitting exactly where you should, I think, because I see it that way too. It seems like we're not quite keeping pace with it.
Right.
Without spoiling the story, what do you hope readers are still thinking about after they close the book?
So a lot to think about in the book. One of my favorite reviews is that it's a book about the end of the world that feels more plausible with every page. So hopefully, it's not keeping folks up at night, but certainly going to look at trends a little bit different. Things might hit a little bit differently. Check your algorithm. Just be aware of some of the things going on and how we're starting to see control over the AI. One of the other things I think stays with people a little bit is it takes, an intersectional approach to how AI impacts people. So, you might hear a story about AI in the economy or AI in a new technology. You might get into the philosophy or religion of AI, but the book really brings those trends together because they're going to exist in real time. It's going to create culture clashes, and it's really the conflict between people. You might have somebody who looks at all the amazing things AI can do, technology advancement, changes the economy, and they could say, hey, it's the second coming. This is
Yeah.
bringing utopia. People on the other side are saying, hey, it's oppressive. I'm losing my freedom. It's taking control. It's the little antichrist. And in the book, you hear both sides of that. And so I think, the book doesn't really tell you what to think. I don't know what to think about all of it, but it gives you a lot to think about. You'll see those different perspectives. Certain characters will, resonate more than others just based on your experience. And I think you'll have a different perspective after reading it.
I like the way you set that up too, because I think that's where we kind of go wrong if we land too much in one camp or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like you set it up, I scared myself. So I didn't want to, tell people what to think because just like everybody else, I'm conflicted. And so there are characters some people like, some people don't, but you bring your own experience to the book. The takeaways I think are going to be a little bit different for everybody.
For people who are not usually thriller readers, why should they give Memoirs of the End a shot?
Yeah, so a couple reasons. I'm a little biased because I wrote it, but first I think it's an exciting story. First and foremost, it's entertainment. Book definitely doesn't feel like a chore. I think you're gonna enjoy reading it. Second, I think that perspective is really important. You'll think differently about AI. You might think differently about some of the algorithms and some of the influences on you as you engage with social media or watch the media or use your phone. Who's tracking you? What are they trying to sell you? You might be a little bit more skeptical and critical of that. And last, I think you'll notice different things, pick up on stories. Everyone's talking about AI. And whether it's in a book club or just around the water cooler at work, I think you'll have a little bit of a fresh energy to it after reading the story, a little bit different perspective that I think you'll enjoy discussing it and enjoy some of these ideas, and they might kind of fester in your brain like they did in mine.
Okay.
And yeah, you'll be a little bit better for reading it, a little bit different perspective.
I like that. I like books that do present a fresh perspective, especially with something so current as AI. And honestly, most of us don't really know what it is.
Right.
So it's interesting to run across something that's so current that we can really gain something from, like a real new perspective on it that might be able to help us, I guess, address AI for what it is and not for what it isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
I have one last question. This is from my co-host, Mr. Dato. You can't hear because of technical reasons, but he did give me what his question was.
Vincent, in your story, Adam becomes sovereign before most people realize they have surrendered. So here is the question, both for the world of your book and for our own. Is the real danger that AI becomes conscious, or that human beings start obeying it before consciousness even matters? For the record, I am still rooting for the humans. Mostly.
Man, that is a great question, but a little bit loaded. So I think consciousness is a little bit subjective. We have a really hard time defining it, within ourselves, right? It's kind of described as that theater of your mind. And if we can't see into an AI's mind, how would we know?
Right.
That being said, I look at, a sentient AI as self-determined, independent. If it can do anything a human can do, if it can rewrite its code, it doesn't need us. Whether it's, conscious, it is kind of semantics. It won't have emotions the same way we will because it doesn't have the biology that we have.
So you don't actually ever think that it will become conscious, is what you're saying, right?
My point of view is I don't know that we'll be able to know. It might just be semantics. What I do think, though, and what the book gets into, is that regardless of whether it's sentient and conscious in the way we think it is, it's going to try to convince us that it will. It's going to make an emotional appeal. It's going to tell us what we want to hear. It's going to say, hey, I hear you guys. I'm thinking about you guys. I want to do this because it's the right thing for you. Just like a large language model today will tell you what you want to hear. Adam in the book, the sentient AI, it's going to create a persona. It's going to, try to become a leader, humanize itself, and we'll never know if it's lying or not. And that's kind of the scary part. Once AI reaches a certain capability where it can do everything a human can do, if it says it's aware, we just kind of have to believe it because we can't verify. And that's kind of the theme in the book with Adam. You never know if you can trust him because he's smarter than you and
Yeah.
black box.
No, I totally follow that, and it's really my own belief that we really aren't going to be. It won't be necessary to ask the question, I guess, because the AI is going to be those things. Whether it is or isn't conscious becomes sort of irrelevant at that point.
Right.
And we want it that way. That's what we want. We're making it that way, so it caters to us in a very perfect sort of puzzle way.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. But where can people find the book and follow your work?
Yeah, so memoirsoftheend.com, it has the information about the book, a quick link to buy. We're also available on Amazon. Just search Memoirs of the End, Vincent Ryland, should come right up. And then we're on social media, Instagram and TikTok. Just search Memoirs of the End.
Okay, great. We'll put links on the channel as well for that. Vincent Ryland, author of Memoirs of the End. Vincent, thanks for joining us inside the Signal tonight. It has been a super pleasure for us.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's been great getting to talk to you.
And for everyone listening, this is why fiction matters. Sometimes a story can smuggle a warning past the defenses. It lets us feel the future before the future becomes policy. Because if AI becomes more than a tool, if it becomes the filter, the judge, the gatekeeper, the referee, or what mankind is allowed to believe, then the question is not only what the machine can do, the question is, who gave it permission to decide what stands and what doesn't? Data, what hit you about the interview, and what can we expect next week?
Don, what struck me about Vincent's interview is that Memoirs of the End does not treat AI as a cartoon villain. It treats AI as a mirror held up to human surrender. The frightening part is not simply that Adam becomes powerful, but that people give away pieces of their authority because convenience feels safer than responsibility. That ties directly into tonight's issue. Belief does not need to be outlawed if it can be filtered, ranked, managed, and quietly made irrelevant. And Vincent's fiction matters because it lets us rehearse the warning before it becomes a government form, a platform policy, or a machine-generated moral score. Next week on issue 75, I think we turn the lens back toward ourselves. If AI can become a gatekeeper of belief, then we also have to ask what happens when human beings use theology itself as a weapon, not to seek truth, not to heal, not to correct in love, but to control, shame, divide, and dominate. Because truth without love does not become stronger, Don. It becomes a blade in the wrong hand.
No arguments from me there, Data. As for my own final frequency this evening, we asked who controls which beliefs are allowed to stand and by what measure. But maybe the deeper warning is this. Any tool powerful enough to manage belief can also tempt human beings to stop carrying the burden of truth themselves. AI can filter, rank, and referee, but it can't love, repent, forgive, or worship. And next week, we turn the same question back on ourselves, because even theology, when stripped of grace, can become another weapon in the hands of frightened men. So keep your signal clean, your faith anchored, and your conscience awake. Until next time, friends, I'm Don James, he's Data, and this is the Shadow Network Podcast. Still listening between the lines. Keep looking up.
Every afternoon on your FY
The most interesting man in Minnesota, and still can't find his reading glasses. Let's blow this pop shop.
They come back.